Good evening, everybody. We will get started in just a minute here. I'm going to give it a few more minutes and let people get in, and then we'll get to talking and get the stream going. So let's just give it a few more minutes and see who all shows up. The people who are on right now, I think most people caught up. I know that I talked to some people and they caught up. Anybody who's not caught up, though, don't worry about it tonight. I actually have I've shared the point in time where we stopped. I've shared that in the project, and I'll show you guys how to get to that. And we will be able to pick up where we left off. So even if you didn't catch the last stream, you'll be able to see it this time and be exactly where everybody else is at. Even if you did see this last time, being able to go in and pull a version, if yours isn't working, pull a version that is working, might be helpful as well. So we'll get to that point, and I just want to let you guys know, don't worry about it at this moment. Again, we're just going to wait to see who shows up, then we will get moving. All right, so a couple things to note before we get started. I noticed last time that when we finished the video, one of the things that happened is that I could still watch the video if I kept it up on my screen. However, if I clicked away from it and then went back into the Future of Code account, it was gone. I couldn't actually find it. Now, I started doing some reading because YouTube is new to me. We used to stream on Twitch. I've done some other stuff on Twitch. I haven't done much on YouTube. So looking at YouTube now, we are able to record as we're streaming. YouTube does it for us, whereas before, when we wanted something on YouTube, we had to record it, download it from Twitch, and then upload it to YouTube. Sorry, I'm just in my headset here because I can hear myself a little bit too much. Anyway, the way that YouTube does it is they actually go through and they compile the video after I'm done streaming. So it takes a while, depending on how long the video is. It takes either a shorter amount of time or longer amount of time for it to go in and say, okay, this is, an hour and 15-minute video. It's going to take 3 hours to compile. And it goes through and it makes the quality a little bit better. So it makes the rewatching of it much nicer. I'm sending more data to YouTube than you guys are probably seeing at the time, so it just makes it look nicer. That said, the video will not be instantly available. It might be available maybe a half a day after. If that happens and it just doesn't pop up whatsoever, I have the ability to try to download it and re-upload it too, or if anything happens where YouTube kind of goes bananas, I don't think it will, but if it does, I still have it available and I can always re-upload it. So just if you don't see it right away, don't worry about it. It's okay. Getting into what we're going to work on today, the last time we worked on the cards, we got the cards building, we got the cards pulling randomly. Based on what card is pulled, the dice will pull appropriately as well. So if we have, I believe the blue card is 2, then it'll pull 2 dice. If the purple card is pulled, then it pulls 6 dice. This time we're actually going to work on the dice. So we're going to start with, and I started looking over the code. This might actually stretch another 1 or 2. We'll see. We're going to work on the player's dice this time. We're not going to work on the AI's dice. We might get there, but we'll see how we get going. We're going to work on the player's dice. So the dice rolling, the animation of it, and then the choosing of the dice based on what card is chosen at the time. So I wanted to show you guys. I thought I would pull it out just for fun. I have, here's what Roll For It actually looks like. So Roll For It, it's kind of cool. I have the deluxe edition. It comes in this neat little tin. I really like it. But when we open it here, I want to show you guys. We have the cards, and then all the dice. So these dice, these are all the player's dice that you get. This is what we're programming today, is the player dice. Specifically, we'll be programming these little red dice. That's going to be the color that I chose. And then let me pull a card or 2 out here. Let's show you guys what the cards look like. And these look a little bit different than the version that we're actually using. The version we're using has it's just solid colors. I have that somewhere as well. I actually use that for a image detection program that I have, but I don't remember where I put it, to be honest. This deluxe version has a little bit nicer cards, but you'll see there's our 15 cards. So there's the 6 dice. They have them laid out a little bit different. We could always do that, make it a little bit fancier. Let's see, we have, here's the 2-point dice. That's laid out exactly like we have it. And then here's the 5-point dice. So that's laid out exactly as we have it as well. So you guys will see that what we're creating in here is actually identical. The only thing we're missing is they have an additional card in here. And if you guys wanted to try to program this in, I think that would be pretty cool. But they have a 4 dice card, which is worth 10 points. Right now we just do the 2, the 3, and the 6 dice. But there's another dice that's, or another dice card that's built into this game, and I believe that's it. Yeah, just the 2, 5, 10, and 15 points. Yep. But there's the ability for you to take this and even take it a little bit farther than where I've taken it. I think that would be really cool. If somebody wanted to give that a try, I would be more than willing to help you. If you want to put comments down in any of these videos, specifically this would probably be the first video where you try to make the additional card. I'd be more than willing to answer and help you out and see if we can't create an additional card. I think that'd be a lot of fun and give you guys something challenging to do. So anyway, this game's really fun. It's cool. I wanted to give them props because we are using their intellectual property. This is their ideas, not ours. I'm just creating it in Scratch. So Roll For It. What is it? Calliope Games. I just wanted to make sure I got that right. Calliope Games. Really cool. They in no way, shape, or form sponsored us in any way at all. It's just, again, their idea, so I feel like we should give them credit. That's what we do in computer science. It's just like writing a paper. You always got to give credit to the original author. All right, let's see how we have. All right, we got some people in there. We'll say hello to everybody. All right, so to get started, if you guys want to search, I'm going to open up a fresh tab here so you guys can see. Let's go to Scratch. If you did not see the last one and you want to start fresh right now, what you're going to do is you're going to go to Future of Code. So you go ahead and type that in the search bar in Scratch, excuse me. So Future of Code, all one word. Then we're going to hit Enter. And you should see, oh, if it doesn't show up, yeah, so it's not going to show up because I only did it a couple hours ago. It takes a while. What you do is click on the Future of Code right here, the little name right there. don't click on roll for it template. That's the first one. That's for the very, very beginning. Just click on future of code. And then you'll see shared projects. And in the shared projects, you'll actually see working copy. Roll for it working copy. Now, if you were with us last week, don't worry about this. It's not a big deal. If you are starting fresh this week, you want to use this one right here. So what you're going to do is you're going to go and you're going to remix this. Once you sign in, there's going to be a little button right here that says remix. Go ahead and hit remix and it'll save it to your account, and so you have something to work with. All right, so I'm going to go back to my account here and I'm going to go into my working copy and let's get started. So let's see inside. Once again, we'll go through this real quick. Last week we worked on developing a new card. We pulled a new card out of the list. We also set up how many dice that each player gets. It's going to be 5 additional dice. We have 6 total. This is additional because we always start with 1. We're cloning them. We tell it how many clones we want. And then we set a broadcast for the new card. We go through, we decide which card we're going to choose. We pick one at random, whether it be the 1, the 2, or the 3 card, which is the 2-point, the 10-point, or the 15-point card. Or excuse me, 2-point, 5-point, 15-point card. The 10-point card's a challenge to you guys, if you can add that in. And then once we were done choosing the card, what this does is that brings up a random card there. And look at that, I fixed the bug on the 15, but the bug came back on the 2-point card where my number's not showing. That's pretty goofy. I don't know why that's doing that, but it's literally just in the costumes. The costumes are misbehaving a little. See, it's right there. I'm going to move it backward and move it forward, and let's see if that changes it again. There we go. Now they're all working. Just a weird bug and scratch. Now you guys know what I do when I see bugs. It's just kind of poking around and trying things. Alright, then after we were done working on the card, we went into the white dice. And inside the white dice, this dice is the one that shows up on top of our card here. This is where we decided that we are going to save the dice to 2 different lists. This is a blue list and a red list. This tells each player what dice they are expected to find. And then we went in and we told it what to do when we find 2 dice, what to do when we have 3 dice, and what to do when we have 6 dice that need to be shown on a card here. The last dice has 6 dice, has now become 5 dice. Okay, so what that probably is, what you have going on here is one of these repeats might not be working. So take a look at this code right here and go through it pretty slowly, but what I'm guessing is that somewhere in one of your repeats here is where all of this isn't functioning right. Either that or you're missing this little piece right here. So read through that. You can take a look at that. Is anybody else's not working? Because I'm more than happy to help anybody else who's having any issues here. This is all part of it. All right. So today, well, we're gonna just keep going for the moment. We can always, again, put questions or put comments. Excuse me. Put questions in the comments section. Sorry, and I will be more than happy to try to help you out, and we can talk through it. Should be no problem at all. So we're going to start working on the red dice here. The red dice is our dice. This one is specifically meant for us. It is not controlled by the AI. It is controlled all by ourselves, and we're going to have a little button here that when we click this button on this side, when I click on it, you can see it kind of highlights it in the side there. This little button is going to be what we roll with. So we're actually going to start with that little button. That's how we get the red dice to do its thing. We need to tell the red dice to do its thing, but we need to tell it somehow. So that's going to be through this little green button. So make sure you're clicked on the green button sprite, and you'll see up in the top corner here that it switches to, you can kind of see it says roll there on top of that green button. Right now we want it hidden. We will unhide it and rehide it, and that is dependent on whether it's our turn or it's the other player's turn. So the first thing we want to do is what we almost always do. We're going to go into events, and we're going to grab a when green flag is clicked. Okay? We always start with a when green flag is clicked somewhere. That's just kind of, it's well, not always, but a majority of the time. If you guys remember last time, one of the things that I said was really, really important to us is we always want to say where the item is on our canvas here. So we've built our canvas, but we want to make sure that everything shows up where it's expected to show up. We can put items in there, we can put all of these sprites in here, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to show up exactly where we want it to. Not to mention that the user of our programs also has the ability to drag it around. They can click on this, hold down, and drag it around, and our program might not look as good or might not function appropriately. So what we want to do is let's go into motion, and we're going to grab the go to XY. And that go to XY is going to be set exactly where it is right now. I'm gonna blow this up just a little so everybody can see a little bit better. The go to XY, that is going to be set to X as -70 and Y as -180. And that's going to put it down in this bottom corner here. Bottom corner is going to be for us, and then this bottom corner, the bottom corner on the left will be for us and our button. The bottom corner on the right, that'll be for our AI and how we tell the AI that it has stuff to do. All right, now that we have it going to the right location, sweet, good job, Pearson guys. I'm glad to hear that. Glad you guys are up and running. Okay, now that we have this here, we are going to then go to looks, and we're going to go and grab show, and we're going to drag show in here. So now it will actually function properly because right now it's hidden. When we press the green flag, our roll button should show up now, and should show up in the bottom left corner. So now that we have it showing up in the right place, what we want it to do is we want it to actually perform an action when we click on it. If we click on it right now, it does absolutely nothing. So there's a couple of different ways. We could do a bunch of code, and we can tell it when it's clicked, you know, make sure that the mouse is touching it and all this stuff. And we can try to perform a click, it's called an event notification through code. We don't have to. Scratch has already built that for us. So we're going to go right back to events, and in events we're going to grab it's called the baseball cap, when this sprite is clicked. And when this sprite is clicked, what we're going to do is we're going to broadcast. We're going to tell the program that somebody's clicked that button, and we want it to come in here and roll these red dice. Well, the red dice need to know that this sprite's been clicked, so we need to create that communication between them. So let's grab a broadcast, and the broadcast, we're going to create a new message. All right, and the new message we're going to create is new roll. Actually, I'm going to capitalize that, new roll. When you capitalize the first word, or when you capitalize the first letter of each word, that's called camel case. That's actually a pretty common way of writing in computer science. So that way, you know each word independently. It just kind of tricks your brain into reading each word as an individual word. So we're going to broadcast new roll, and then once we broadcast that, we don't want this to show up for the user. We don't want them to be able to keep clicking on it over and over and over again. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back to looks, and we're going to grab a hide. We're going to drop the hide button in there. So now what this is doing is when we start the program, it's going to start up, it's going to show us the button. And then when we click the button, it's going to broadcast new roll to the rest of the program. and then it's going to hide itself. So let's look at what that does. We click roll, and it disappears. It broadcasts something, but we don't have a receiver for our broadcast in just yet. That's what we're going to do next here. All right, so let me hit this green flag again. We see it, click, it's gone, perfect. Remember, I can click on a single piece of code and also perform what that's doing just by clicking on the code itself. So I'm going to bring it back by clicking on the when green flag clicked code. That brings it back so I'm able to see it. All right, let's hop over to the red dice now. So make sure you have the red dice up in the top corner here. That's really important. We want to make sure we're putting the code into the right spot. All right, first thing we want to do is we're going to kind of set this up as if the user is playing, right? Well, one of the things that we have going on right now is look at the dice hanging out there. That is not what we want to see. What we want to see is this be a nice clean slate when the user starts. This is not a nice clean slate. It doesn't look good. We have just a single dice hanging out there. It doesn't mean anything. We're supposed to have 6 dice anyway. So to me, this is a mess. I don't like it. It's not clean. So we need to clean this up. Users will use a game if it's clean. They won't use it if it's not clean. So we're going to grab when green flag is clicked. And what we're going to do is when this is clicked, we're going to go into looks and we're just going to hide the dice. We don't want to see the dice yet. We haven't rolled. We haven't done anything. We want the game board to be nice and clean. This will make sure our game board's nice and clean. And we can make sure with this by clicking the green flag, and look at that. Nice and clean. Okay, so now that looks good. We have what we need. We're set. We have the roll button working. We have the dice clearing. Now what we wanted to do is when we click the roll button, when we said that broadcast message, new roll, we want the broadcast message to do something. So let's go into events. And we are going to say when I receive, and it says 2 dice right here, and let me zoom in a little so we can see. When I receive 2 dice, we're going to change that to when I receive new roll. Once again, I'm going to give you these X and Y numbers. Just trust me on the X and Y numbers. They should show up where they're supposed to show up. Like I said, I did, as I built this, I just took notes on where everything should be. So let's hope this turns out well and I give you the right numbers. What we want to do is we want to place our first dice. So we're going to create the dice the same way we created the white dice. Is we're going to create 1 dice. We're going to give it actions. We're going to tell it what to do. And then what we do after that is we are going to then create clones of it. And when we create the clones, we're going to tell them what to do. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, and by what to do, I mean where to go, where to be, how many times to roll, so on and so forth. And we're going to do that by creating some functions here. The first thing we're going to do, though, is a go to X and Y. And we're going to set this X and Y, we're going to set it to -110 and -135. Sorry, my nose is tickling me. Okay, so -110 and -135. The next thing we need to do is we've decided how many red dice exist and how many clones we need to have of our red dice. And we did that last time by creating a variable. And that variable was called red dice. So if I go to variables now, and I grab the red dice pill, I can drag this in here. We need to create a clone over and over and over again of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into control, and we're going to grab the repeat 10. We're going to drag the repeat 10 and put it in right below the go to X and go to Y. And then we're going to take this red dice pill and we're going to drop that in the repeat. So it'll say repeat red dice. And this tells us how many times we need to repeat. So we're going to have our initial one, which is what already exists. This initial one's going to go to X and Y. This is our first dice. And then we're going to repeat 5 more times and create a clone of the dice 5 more times. So let's grab that while we're here. We're going to say create a clone of myself. That is in control near the bottom there. Okay, now that we've done this, just like these dice with the white dice, when we created those, if it creates the clone, it's just going to keep creating the clone exactly in the same spot that the original was at, which is 110 and 135. So when we create a clone, we actually want it to move. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the motion tab here. We're going to grab go to X and Y. Let's drag that out. We'll just put it right here off to the side for a second. And then we're going to use the location that it was already at, and we're going to actually move that around. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of calculate where we were before, and we're going to calculate where we should be next. And the way we can do this is we know where we are by using these pills down at the bottom here. They're X, Y position, and direction. This tells us where we are on the canvas and then tells us where we're looking as far as direction goes. So let's take the X position out here. We're going to grab X position and drag this off to the side. We are then also going to go into operations, and in operations we're going to grab the plus sign. So go ahead and drag all of those out to where they should be. Okay, now we're going to combine these together. So let's take X position and we're going to drop X position inside the plus sign. And then what we're going to do is on the other side of this X position, we're going to add 45. We wanted to adjust 45 pixels over. Again, I've already figured this out. Let's just go with it. And then what we're going to do is drop this X position plus 45 into the X location. So it should say go to X is equal to X position plus 45. And Y should be set to negative 135. So what this is going to do is it's going to, every time it creates a clone, it's going to shift it over 45. Okay, so now when we drop that in there, let's see if that works. So when I receive a new roll, we haven't done something yet. There's a reason that it's not showing up. It's because we've hidden these. We don't want it to actually show up yet. I'll show you why we don't want to. We want to move it first and not make it look like it's sliding around. I'm sorry to hear the internet's down. That's no fun. The video will be back up tomorrow, so you'll still be able to watch it. Sorry to hear that, Alicia. That's a bummer. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we need it to roll the dice. I'm going to create a roll dice function, and then I'm going to show you where the roll dice function is going to be called from. Now there's a trick to this, and the trick is that we want all the roll dice functions to be called at the same time. And I'll show you how we do that. So let's go to My Blocks, and in My Blocks we're going to make a block, and we're going to call that Roll Dice. We don't need to put any inputs in here, no labels, nothing. Let's just call it Roll Dice and click OK. This is going to create a brand new roll dice defined function. And what I'm going to do is just to show what's going on here, we're going to drag I'm going to drag the roll dice out here. Don't do this. I'm going to do this so I can show you guys how everything's functioning. and then I'm going to turn the roll dice on, and it'll show us what's going on here as we build this out. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set its rotation style. So we're going to go to motion, and we are going to look for set rotation style. And it's almost near the bottom here. Set rotation style. Now this is kind of goofy. What this does is this actually tells the dice how we want it to look when it rotates. Typically what happens is the dice rotates around a certain point. We're going to tell it that we want it to rotate what's called all around. Later on we're going to use don't rotate, and you'll see what that does. This tells it to rotate, and it's going to make it kind of spin in a circle, in random circles. Later when we use don't rotate, it's going to make it look exactly like it is in this here, which is just straight up and down. The rotate all around is what makes it look kind of sideways here. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is, because over here we're not making the dice show up, we're making them move, and then we're making them roll. We're kind of like placing the dice, and then we're showing them, and then making them roll. We need to go in, and we need to go to looks and grab show, and we're going to drop show in there. Then while we're in looks, let's also grab a set size, and we're going to set this to 10%. The original dice are pretty big in this. If we set them to 100, they'd be quite a bit larger. Obviously 10 times larger than they are now. We want them to be set to 10%. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to create the spin, because right now when we roll the dice, this doesn't do anything. Nothing at all. Kind of boring. So let's go to control, and I'm going to make the dice roll for a certain length of time. So I'm going to grab repeat and grab the repeat 10, and I'm going to change this to repeat 30. Now I want this to repeat 30 times, and what I want it to do is I want it to kind of behave like a real dice. When you roll a dice, not only does it spin, but the numbers change. Like if you were to look straight down on top of a dice, you're going to see it spinning around a little bit, and you're going to see different numbers show up facing you. So we're going to do exactly that. We're going to go into motion. We're going to grab the turn 15 degrees, and we're going to drop that in here. Now I don't want it to always turn 15 degrees, because it'll just kind of spin around and look, it'll just spin pretty consistently. When a dice is bouncing, it doesn't spin very consistently. It might spin slow for a second, then hit a corner and then spin faster, then hit a flat side and slow down. So we want this to be variable. So we're going to go into operators, and in operators we're going to grab pick random. And this is going to make it change a random quantity of degrees each time it spins. And we're going to make this change anywhere from 1 to 360 degrees. So it can either spin one tiny little bit, or it can spin around the whole way. We'll do one full spin. And this is going to be random for us. So this will kind of create that fidgety look that a dice has. The next thing we want to do is this dice, just like these here, the white dice that we used, the costumes are set up to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, all respective with their numbers here. So we're going to use that to our advantage. We're going to go into looks, and we are going to say switch costume 2. We're going to grab that, and right now mine is set to red dice 6. We're going to drop that in. But once again, this pill shape, even though it's a drop-down menu, we don't have to use what's in the drop-down menu. We can take the pick random pill and drop that in, and we're going to pick a random number between 1 and 6. That'll give us a dice anywhere between 1 and 6. Now, when we click the roll dice, we should get kind of a fidgety look. See that? How it picks, you can see it kind of picking random numbers in there and also spinning wildly. This allows us to kind of, create a little bit of animation to it. To try to animate a dice rolling is actually really, really difficult. This is one of the ways that you can kind of hack physics a little bit, is just by taking a 2D shape, swapping out 2D shapes, and making rotations, and sometimes people will also warp, do a little bit of warping so that one side of the dice might show up a little bit smaller than the other side of the dice. There's all sorts of little tricks you can do with 2 dimensions to make it look like a 3-dimension object moving. This isn't great, but it's a start. There's still a ton we could do to make this look more realistic, but this is where we're going to stop for now. It looks fine when all 6 of them are up here and doing that. It'll look better. Now, to get all the dice to roll at the same time, we want them to all show up at the same time and all roll at the same time and then all stop rolling at the same time. That's a bit of a trick. And the way to do that, and I shouldn't say all roll at the same time, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The way we do that is by telling the dice to roll at certain times. If we were to just drop this roll dice here into the create a clone and go to move position, it wouldn't quite work the way that we wanted it to. And I'll kind of show you here. It's going to roll one and roll the other and then roll the other and then roll the other. You see how it kind of waits for the last one to finish and then begins the next one? That's not what we want to do. That's not how you throw dice down, right? When you're shaking dice and you drop them, they all kind of roll at the same time. We don't roll one dice at a time. So what we do is we have to use this roll dice a little more gently and a little more of a trick to it. So what we're going to do is the first time we roll a dice, we're actually going to roll a dice when we receive this new roll right here. So what I'm going to do is I don't want to necessarily put this in here, because if I put this in here, it's going to, again, wait for that roll dice to stop. It's going to wait for the first one to stop, and then it'll keep doing them. But we can actually do this code right here at the same time as we start rolling the first dice. So what we do is we go back to events, and we're going to grab when I receive 2 dice, and we're going to change that to new roll. And we're going to put this roll dice right under when I receive new roll. Now you notice that we have 2 when I receive new rolls. This is perfectly okay. What happens now is the code will now run in parallel. So not only does this code start to run, so this is the code creating the dice, but this is the code rolling the dice. This is all going to happen at the same time. Now this will only roll the first dice. If we click this here, it's only, I shouldn't say first dice because it's creating them 1 through 6. The last one is what behaves right here. It's kind of goofy. I'll explain it. I might explain it later. It's just a little twitchy, so to say. So you notice that only 1 dice rolls. All the rest show up. Well, not all the rest. Most of the rest show up, but we don't ever see this first one here, and that's the only one that rolls. So what we need to do is we need to say that, hey, when we're creating, and why this first dice isn't showing up is it's a race condition is what it's called. The dice is being created, the first one's being created and it's running through here, but it's not, it's moving on to the next code, I should say, before it gets to that. So anyway, we might get to that later as well. This is, like I said, a really tricky part. So to get these to roll as well, we're going to say that, you're going to go into control and say that when I start as a clone, and then go to my blocks again and click roll dice. Now, hopefully, if I've done this right, there we go. If we've done it right, we should get all 6 dice rolling there. And you see how they all roll at the same time? It's pretty cool, right? Check that out. So when a green flag clicked, click that roll button, all of them roll. And let me know if you guys are having problems. I know this part's a little bit weird. What we're doing right here is, like I said, we're creating what's called parallel processing. So this means that all 6 dice are doing the same thing at the same time. So it's not waiting on one dice to finish doing something before the next dice can start it. This is something with clones that you kind of have to get used to doing, is giving each clone an independent set of actions. And the way we do this is through this right here. We're not ever telling it to roll dice as it's creating it. We're telling something else, two different things in fact. We're telling two different things that the dice need to be rolled. We're creating independently of rolling the dice. This is probably pretty goofy, probably seems a little bit weird, but it takes some practice, and I'm more than willing to help you guys with figuring this out if you're creating your own projects. It is tough to think about in this manner. Even adults, when they start doing computer science stuff, when we get into parallel processing, adults get confused pretty quick, to be honest. This is something that it's hard for our brains to think about, because actually humans in general, we cannot do more than one thing at once. We can switch between tasks very quickly. I can move my mouse and talk, but what my brain is doing is saying talk mouse, but it's doing it really, really quick. It's just back and forth clicking and telling my brain to do one thing or the other. Our brains move very fast in that manner. It's kind of what the computer's doing too. But normally when we're giving directions, when we're doing something like baking, we do things linearly. So we will put in the flour, and then we put in the egg, and then we mix it, and or put in the milk, and then we mix it. And you have to do things in a right order or it doesn't function. That's how we start teaching coding at the beginning. This is how we start to move on, is doing many things at once. So this program that we're writing right now is a step into your next ability, your next programming ability, which is parallel processing. Okay, so hold on, let me reorganize my notes here so we make sure we have everything. I'm just trying to make sure we all are good. Okay. Now that we have that going, we need to know when we are picking the dice and if the dice that we picked are actually able to be put against the card. So like this one, for instance, if we have 1, 1, and 1, when we click on a dice here, see, we click on the dice and they're not doing anything. Especially this 1, when we click on that 1, we would want this dice to be placed against this card. We want the card to know that, or we want the dice to know that it can be played with that card. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to notify when this sprite is clicked. So let's go into control. Excuse me, not control, events. Let's go to events, and I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here. Let me organize a little bit better so I have some more room. Okay, we're going to grab when this sprite is clicked. Now, what we need to do is we have already gone in here, and you don't have to do this, I'm just going to show you. And we have red dice here. Red list. So you notice our red list matches the dice that are showing up. If I create a new one, look at that. We got 5, 4, 6, 1, 3, 2. Remember, we created a list to know which dice are on the card. Now when we roll, we want to check which dice we're clicking on, and we're going to check that against this list here. And we're going to see if that exists in the list. Now how we're going to do this is by using an if statement first off. So let's go to control, because like I say, we want to check if it exists in there. You know, when you're speaking English, there's some keywords to what kind of code you should use. I used the word if. We should probably use an if statement. All right, now we want to look inside red's list and see if what I click on exists. So if I'm clicking on this 4, I want it to come in here and look in this list and see if 4 is in that list. So let's go to my variables and let's look in the list section. And in here, there it is. I have blue list contains thing. We're going to change this to red list, so we can change it here, we can drag it out and change it. And we're going to say red list contains thing. Now the thing that we're looking for is the dice number. Now earlier, remember, I said that the dice number correlates to the costume number. So dice side 1 is 1, dice side 2 is costume 2, and so on to where dice side 6 is costume 6. So we can use the costume number in here to actually figure out if it's in the list. So let's go up to looks, and we are going to scroll down to the pills, and we're going to grab costume number, and we're going to place that over thing. So we're going to say, does the red list contain the costume number? Okay. Giving you guys a sec to catch up just in case. So we're going to place this in our if statement. And then when it's in the if statement, we have some more work to do. Excuse me 1 second here. Bit of a dry throat after talking for an hour there. Okay, so we're going to use a couple if statements, or excuse me, we're going to use a repeat statement here, and we're gonna perform some actions, and we'll kind of go through it slowly. Again, this is getting a little bit advanced, but that's okay. We're trying to do this to be a little more creative. So what we know is that essentially what we know now is that the costume is contained in red list. So we know it's in here somewhere. We just don't know where it is, and we want to make sure that we're deleting the right thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to cycle through here slowly, and we're going to check each one, and we're going to check the first one here, and we're going to say, is number 1 equal to our costume number? So if we click on number 4, is it equal to our costume number? If it is, then we're going to, or if it isn't, we're going to keep going. We're going to say, okay, is number 2 equal to our costume number? In this case, it would be. And then we're going to, actually do something with it. So let's go, first off, we're going to go down to variables, and we're going to grab this I here. We're going to say set blue scores, what mine is right now, but we're going to say set I to 1. We're going to make this 1. And we're saying 1 because our red list starts at 1. It doesn't start at 0 like normal computer science. And we're going to say set I to 1. Now what this is we use these very basic, we usually do I, J, and K. We start with I, and it's for iterators. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this 1 here. We're going to use this variable to know which part of the red list we are in. As we're going through, it's going to kind of give us a hint of where we're looking. And we will change this as we go through. And I'll show you how we're going to change it. And we're going to change it using a repeat statement. So this repeat statement is going to look pretty goofy. And I'll show you guys. Just stick with me here. So let's grab repeat 10, and we're going to drag this in. We don't want to repeat 10 though. We don't want to go through all of them, because if we found one of them, that's where we want to stop. So we need to know when to stop, or when not to stop. In this case, it's going to let us know when not to stop. So we need to create this, what we need to do is we need to create this if statement. Again, this if statement is really, really goofy looking. Just stick with me. We will, I'll do my best to explain it, but it is a little hard to comprehend right off the get-go. It'll take some, it's a bit of a challenge. So the first thing we need to do, I clicked on the wrong one, it's operators. And we're going to grab a couple operators out of here. The first one we're going to grab is the greater than. That's the alligator facing left. We're going to grab the equal sign. And we are going to grab an or. So we have and, or, and not. We're going to grab or. So what the or does is if one or the other is equal to true, the whole or is equal to true. And I'll show you guys how we use this here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use this greater than. Okay? And in the greater than, let me see if I can scoot up a little bit more here. There we go. Let's drop these down. Okay, this greater than, we're going to come back to variables. We're going to grab two variables out of here. We're going to be looking for two different things. We're going to first grab the I out of our variables, and we're going to put that in the first spot. Okay? And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to see the length of red list. So let's go down to list, and it's a pill, and mine says length of blue list, but I'm going to drag it out and change it to red list. And then that is length of red list. So what this is saying is this is going to, oh, and I grabbed the wrong repeat. You guys, sorry about that. This repeat 10, let's drop this out of here. I'm sorry about that. Let's go back to control, and we're going to go down a little bit farther, and we're going to grab repeat until. So we want something to happen until something has existed. So go ahead and get rid of that first repeat, repeat 10. Let's get rid of that and grab repeat until. Sorry about that. They look very similar. They're just a little bit different wording. Okay, so we want to repeat this until we know we've reached the end of the list. So what this question does right here, it's asking, is I is equal to 1, greater than length of red list? And so what we're checking for is we want to check and see if I gets to 7, we need to stop checking. If I gets to 7 and we're still trying to check, this is a bug. We don't ever want it to check if it's past 7. So this protects us and makes sure right here, if I is greater than length of red list, which our length is equal to 6, it's at the bottom here, we can see that. Right at the bottom of our list here. There, trying to get the mouse to grow a little bit. There we go. We don't want to go to 7. We want to stop at 7, or stop before we check 7. This will stop that for us. The next thing we're going to check is this equal sign. Let's drag that down. And what we want to do is we want to see if the item that we're on, if we're looking at a number here, if we're on number 2 in our list, if the item inside number 2 is equal to our costume. So we need to, same couple things here. We're going to go to variables, and we're going to grab I. Remember, I indicates which item in the list we're in. And then we're going to go down to the list section, and we're going to grab the pill that says item 1 of blue list is what mine says here. But we're going to change that to red list. And we're going to drop that I where the 1 is. So we're going to say item I of red list. So we're trying to check for I here. And I'll show you how we change I in just a second, because you're probably thinking, well, I is only 1 right now. We'll change I. We'll make it to where I looks through all of these. Or in this case, since we're doing some cool code, it's only going to look through as many as it needs. And then we're going to go to looks, and what we're trying to compare to is we're going to see if item I of red list is equal to our costume number. And so we're going to drag this first one into the left side and the second one into the right side. So we want to keep doing something until item I of red list is equal to costume number. And I'll show you what we're going to keep doing. This is probably why you're confused just a little bit right now, is you're like, I is not changing. Why is I not changing? That's actually what we're going to repeat. So let's go to variables. and in variables, grab the change, mine says blue score by 1. Remember, don't grab set, grab change. Very, very key here. We want to increase it by 1, but we're going to increase I by 1, and we're going to drop that in the repeat until. So now what we're doing is we're going to combine these here down at the bottom, all of these, I like to call them the rupee structures. We're going to combine these, and what we're going to do is we're going to make I increase until we think we found the right number. So what this does is it's going to come in here and it's going to say, okay, I is equal to 1, so we're going to start at the beginning of the list, and it says, okay, repeat until, and then we're going to change I by 1. But what we're repeating until is we're going to do some checks here. So we're going to say repeat until is I greater than length of red list. Well, if we're just starting, I is equal to 1, it's going to say, nope, length of red list is 6, I is equal to 1, it's not greater than. So that's our first one. So that's going to be false. Then we're going to check our second one, and we're going to say, okay, if we clicked on this first one here, is item I of red list, which I is still set to 1, item I of the red list, this is the item, is 5. Is 5 equal to my costume number? Well, I clicked on 4. 4 and 5 are not equal. So that's going to say, nope, not equal. So what that's going to do is this is going to say, okay, repeat until this is true. Well, this was false and this was false because we didn't get to 7 for I, and 4 is not equal to 5, which is the item there. So it's going to come inside here and it's going to do what's inside our repeat until, which it says we're going to change I by 1. So we're going to make I 2, and then we're going to come right back to the top here and we're going to check for these again. So this is how it's going to look. Oops, let me try to get all this in here. So each time we're going to check and say, okay, did we already go through our list? No, we didn't go through our list. Okay, well, did that number exist in our list? If it did exist in the list, it's going to stop increasing this. If it did not exist in the list, it's going to actually stay at I. And I'm going to show you why we want it to stay at I. Because in our case here, if I clicked on 4, and we went through this and we said, okay, well, we checked the first time, I came through here, increased by 1, and then we returned back around. We're going to check again. This time we're still not to 7, but our second item is 4, and the costume number we clicked on is 4. So we're not going to do what's inside here. We don't want to do what's inside here anymore. We want to change. Well, the cool part about this is we just found out where number 4 is in our list because we changed I to 2. So now I tells us exactly where we are in our list. We're in spot number 2. So one of the things we need to do is we need to get rid of 4 out of here now. So we clicked on 4, we have 4 up here. We need to say, okay, we don't want 4 in our list because we're going to take that dice and we're going to put it in here, which means that we don't need to pick 4 anymore. So what we do is let's come down to list, and we're going to grab delete 1 of blue list. Now what delete 1 says is it says delete 1, which is this first number right here. So that would delete number 5 out of here. The first spot is number 5. We want to delete the second spot, which is number 4. Well, we already kept track of where number 4 was by using I here. So let's go up to variables, grab I, and we're going to say delete I out of the red list. All right, and then we're going to put this right below the repeat until. So let's see what this does. When I click on 4, let's look at our list here. Watch what this does. It might make a little more sense. When I click on 4, look at that, 4 disappeared out of our list. We don't have it there anymore. Why? Is because we're going to take 4 and we're going to put it up next to the card here because we're going to use it to try to win this card. That means that the computer has to know that we made a choice, that we have an option, it's been made, and we're going to take it. So we don't need to try to roll a number 4 dice anymore because there's only one 4 dice on this card. Now we haven't moved this yet. We'll do that here soon. But we got it taken care of. That's pretty cool. The next thing we need to do is we need to now, the next time we roll, we need to roll less dice because we don't have 6 dice anymore. When we put one on the card, we lose that dice. So what we need to do is we need to take in the variable section, take change blue score by 1. We're going to set this to red dice. And we're going to change this by -1. We're subtracting 1 from the red dice. If we've placed it, we're retracting 1. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to now place the dice on the card, or well, next to the card. This is the last thing we're going to do for tonight. I know that everything I just showed you was a huge step in learning. It's a lot to take in, so we're going to finish this up. We will continue next time. We'll be able to do the blue player, but the blue player is a lot of the same as the red player. So everything you did today, it's going to be very, very similar. Not going to be too bad. Okay, so we need to place the dice now. We're going to do this by creating a function. So let's go to my blocks, and we are going to make a block, and we're going to call it place dice. We don't want to add any inputs. We don't want to add any labels. We're just going to place dice. And let's click OK. This is going to create a new function for us. I'm going to try to keep these two here together because this one and this one kind of go together. This function, when sprites clicked, and define place dice kind of go together, and I'll show you why. What we're going to do is when we click on this dice now, we're going to make it show up in the top corner here. How we're going to do that is we're going to do a little bit of math. This is crazy, but I know the dice I want them to show up in a line down the side of the card. But to make them space themselves equally, I have to know how many dice are up there, and that will calculate, we'll be able to calculate how far we need to move the dice around to get them to show up. Just trust me on the math. Don't worry about this. I'm just going to, we'll place it up there. Don't fret on the mathematics. We'll just go through it slowly. So let's go to motion, and we're going to grab go to X and Y. We're going to set the X to -90. Okay. Now -90 is where we want the dice to show up as far as, from left to right. We know we want -90 is right about here next to our card. Now we want the dice to start at the top and come towards the bottom. Now this is a bit of a trick. This is I had to do a little bit of creative math for this just based on the size of the dice. I know that up at the top here is about 105. So we have to start at 105. So let's go into operators, and we're going to grab a subtraction. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So in the subtraction, the first thing we're going to set this to is 105 in the left side of the subtraction. So we know that's where we want it to be. Now we're going to do, this is the crazy math. We're going to grab a multiplication, and we are going to grab let me make sure I'm getting this right. I'm a little bit, yep. We're going to grab another subtraction. Like I said, we're going to use how many dice we currently have to tell us how far down the list we've gone. And that means that's going to tell us how many dice we have to place on the side, and then how far apart we have to space them. So this is the crazy math. We're going to take the variable, let's go to variables, and we're going to take red dice. And we're going to drop red dice in here as well. So we have 150 minus blank right now. In that blank, we're going to drop a multiplication. And then we're going to set the first part of the multiplication to 30 pixels. In the second part of the multiplication, we're going to drop the other subtraction. And in the first part of the subtraction, we're going to set it to 4. And then in the very last, we're going to set red dice. So it should be this, it looks like steps. It looks like stairs, doesn't it? So what we're going to do is it tells it to subtract 4 minus red dice. And then it's going to tell us to multiply that by 30 pixels. And then we're going to subtract that from 150. This is really goofy, and we're going to drop it into Y. Again, trust me on the math. It works out. I did a lot of playing with this to make them show up nicely. This is what works. Again, let me zoom in on this for you. If you need to pause the video at this point, go back and do it. Just make sure that you drop them in the right order. You'll notice that red dice is on top, then subtraction, and then multiplication, and then subtraction. If you don't do these in the right order, it's going to show up really weird. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is, because these are all rotated, we don't want ours to rotate when it's up in the top here. We want it to be nice and square. So let's go to motion, and in motion, we're going to grab the set rotation style, and we're going to set rotation style to don't rotate. Multiplication, that's a good question. Multiplication isn't operators, it is the third from the top. Oops, trying to get over there. There we go, third from the top. So you have plus, minus, multiply, divide. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so now let me give you just a sec to catch up here. I'm gonna set rotation style to don't rotate, and then actually one more thing here, and then I'll just kind of take this slowly. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna set the size just a little bit smaller, just because of the canvas that we have here. I want it to be a tiny bit smaller when I set it next to the card. It just looks better. So we're gonna go to looks, and we're going to grab set size, and we're going to set size to 8%. It just makes it look nicer. It's not much. You don't really have to do it. Well, you do have to do it if you don't want the dice overlapping. We could change our equation up here, and our equation and the set size could be different. That's why this equation's a little bit goofy, is because we want to change the size, which makes us have to move it a little bit different. It's a little bit weird, but it makes it look nice. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we want to actually, this is really cool. You can actually stamp on the screen the item. So this dice, we want to move it up here, but we don't want to leave the clone there, because we don't want to create more clones but leave clones here, and create more clones and leave clones here. What we want to do is just say that whatever this was, we want the stamp to show up there. We want to take this like it's a rubber stamp, and we just want to pop it right on there and let it stay there until we tell it to erase the stamp. So how we do this is by using the pen tools. So let's go to this blue button down in the bottom, and it says add extension if we hover over it. And we're going to add pen, draw with your sprites. And this is going to give us a list of options in the pen section now. And one of those, the second one, is stamp. This is pretty cool. This allows us to place a sprite somewhere, and it's going to stay there until we erase it. So no matter what we do with the sprite, it's not going to move. It just kind of creates it is how it sounds. It creates a stamp. It creates a duplicate of itself on the canvas, but it doesn't have any codability. It is just for show. And then what we're going to do is, once we've stamped that dice, we're going to hide the original. So let's go to looks, and we're going to hide. I'm going to let you guys catch up just a little bit. Okay, so the one thing we want to do with this stamp is when we click on these now, the stamp is going to, oh, maybe not quite, let's try this again. Let's see if it's working now. Oh, not quite working. Why is it not working? Let me see. Is it working for you guys? What did I do wrong? Let me see. I'm looking at my code notes here. Negative 90, 105, negative 34. Okay. Oh, you know what we didn't do wrong, or we know what we did wrong, is we never called place dice. Oh my goodness. Man, I spaced on that one. You guys can give me a hard time about that. Okay, let's go to my blocks. And we're going to grab the place dice block. Look at this. This is where where I messed up, why it's not working yet. Okay, in the when this sprite is clicked, when we go through and we check all this crazy stuff, the repeat until and all that, at the very bottom, if we've subtracted a dice, if we've deleted it from the list, we then need to tell it that it needs to be placed on the card. And that's where we're going to set the place dice. Now, we should be able to, let's come in here, let's do a roll. Hey, I got a 1 there. Hey, there we go. It's interesting because it's not quite showing up in the right spot where I want it. Oh, excuse me. I set this to 150. I want it to be 105. A little dyslexia there. You guys are going to have to excuse me today. It's 105 minus 30 times 4 minus red dice, not 150. I don't know if I said 105 or 150 earlier, but excuse me. Now it should show up a little bit lower, because this is going to be where the blue dice roll right here. So let's try this again. And look at that. We don't have it deleting. Interesting. We got a bug in there, don't we? We don't have a bug in there. We just haven't got to that code yet. So let's fix that. So this showing up here, we had a bug. I set it to 150. It should have been 105. We, created a bug for ourselves. Now we have this in the way, so we restarted, and it's still there. Well, what we need to do, this is going to be a problem, isn't it? Every time we get a new card, even if we're in the middle of playing the game, it's not going to erase. So let's go back to, events. And we're going to grab when I receive, and mine says 2 dice, and we're going to say when I receive new card. So anytime a new card is drawn, we're going to go back into pen, and we're going to erase all. We want to remove all the dice that have been placed. Anything that's been stamped, we're going to clear it out. And if we click the green flag again, let's click roll. We see that that dice up there disappeared. And look at that. Now we have it working. Nothing works there. Okay. Or nothing else works as in we don't have the dice on the card. But I had 2 2s and it picked it. I now have 3 5s and a 6 I have to get. I had no dice there. All right, so this is actually where I'm going to call it for tonight. This gets into the next button, the done button. And in the done button, I'm going to fix this a little bit. In the done button, we're going to click this done button to let the computer know that we are done with our turn. and then the computer is going to take its turn, and the computer essentially has its own done button that it clicks inside, and it'll let us know that the green button will show back up and we will be able to pick again. Alright, so I'm going to take this time. I'm going to remove the red list there. We don't want to see that anymore. I'm going to take this time and I'm going to ask you guys. I see one person in there talking. I see Pierce and Kaizo are talking. Do you guys have any questions? How is this working? Please let me know if it's working for you. If it's not working for you, we can take this time to do a little bit of bug fixing. If it's working, great. Let me actually pull up all the code. So I'm going to pull up. Here's all the code we wrote today. Let me get it organized here. All right, there we go. So later on too, if you're watching this, you can pause it at this point. Again, if you have a bug, read through your code slowly, compare, contrast between my code and your code, and see what is and is not working. This was a lot of code today though, and it was good code. It was a step in a direction that a lot of my students haven't taken yet. So it's definitely a bit of a jump. You guys are being fairly quiet, so I'm hoping that that means that things went well. Again, if you guys have any questions later on, you can also place them in the comments. The comments are a nice spot to put them. Make sure that you save your project up in the top corner here, and then make sure it's shared. If it's shared, one of the things you can put in the comments is you can put your username, and I can go in, and if you've shared this project, I can find your username and actually look at the project and help you with the code as well. So if you're like, I'm only getting 4 dice instead of 5, say, Chris, my username is, where mine here is Future of Code. Can you take a look and help me out? Again, if the project's shared, I can't stress that enough. I can go in and I can say, look through your code and find what's going on and help you guys out. And that seems like a good sign, Pearson Kaizo, the message you just sent there. So hopefully that is, yeah, no problem, guys. Thank you guys for being here too. I appreciate it. We will be back next Thursday. We will do a stream. One of the things I've been thinking about is that I don't know when I would release it. Sometime other than Thursday, I might do smaller, maybe like 5 to 10 minute lessons. I'm not going to stream them. I'm just going to record them, and then I'm going to post them onto YouTube. So that's where, I keep telling everybody here, go ahead and if you haven't already, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and it'll let you know when I do new things. Those small little items I'm thinking about might be just tiny little quick little code pieces to maybe put in other games. One that I have done that I was thinking about posting is a bag tool. So it'll show you how to put items in a bag. So you create a bag in your program, you create items on the ground, for instance, and when you click on the item, it'll place it into your bag, and you can keep track of inventory. And that bag is pretty cool too. When you hit the B button, it'll open the bag. When you hit the B button again, it closes the bag. It's not a lot of code. It's actually very, very simple to program. I'm thinking about doing just tiny stuff like that. Also maybe a little bit of lessons here and there based around other parts of science. So we might use code to look at other things in science and, maybe get a little bit of school stuff in there, a little bit of math, a little bit of science. I'm not really sure how to incorporate English yet because computer scientists were not very good at English usually, but I'll try to figure it out. So again, keep your eyes open. I will post that to Twitter as well. If you go to our website now, futureofcode.org, there is a Twitter stream. It is our Twitter stream that shows up on futureofcode.org. So you don't have to have Twitter to see what we're posting. You just have to go to the website. So I think that's it for tonight. If you have your projects, yes, if you share them with me, I can definitely take a look at them. I am more than happy to do that with you guys. And in fact, I think I have both your guys's Pearson guys. I think I have your guys's usernames already from other projects we've done. So anyway, I think if nobody has any questions, I'm going to call it a night. You guys be safe, wash your hands, keep away from everybody else, and please stay safe and keep from being sick. I will talk to you guys soon, and have a great night of coding